Good morning, everybody. Today, I just want to do a lesson on your editing and revising checklist for the final draft of your research paper. Just as a reminder, your research paper is due on Tuesday, March the 24th. Please let me know if you're having any trouble. Okay, so let's start with basics and sources. The first thing I want you to ask is my works cited page the final page of my research paper? I did receive some rough drafts where somebody had forgotten to make that works cited page the final page of their paper. They just forgot to paste it in. Please make sure you do that. I can't grade your final draft without a works cited page. So please double check, make sure it's there, and make sure it's the final page of your paper. Also, look at that works cited. Make sure you fix the all caps entries in your works cited. I know it's not your fault. Some of them copied over that way from EBSCOhost, but please do take a look at your works cited and proofread that as well. Check spelling, check for capital letters, make sure nothing is in all caps. Okay, did I use all of the sources listed in my works cited? And to go with that, do all of my parentheticals match to a source in my works cited? So you're sort of checking this twice. You're going to look at your works cited and make sure that every single source on that list was used. If it wasn't, it needs to come off. And then also, you're going to look at every single parenthetical as you read through your paper. Make sure that they match to a source that is in the works cited. So it should match two ways. I'll show you my works cited right now just to explain what I'm talking about. So here's my works cited. So I need to go through these sources and ask myself, does A Bug's Life appear in my parentheticals? And remember, the parenthetical is going to include everything that is to the far left of your works cited entry. So it's really easy for someone to just double check where the information came from. So I'm going to check my paper for A Bug's Life. I'm going to check my paper for An Interview With. I'm going to check it for Babinski and Manchester. See, I have two authors here, so I'm going to have some parentheticals that say Babinski and Manchester. I'm going to check it for Cirque du Soleil. I'm going to check it for Ghazawi et al. Also Jackson, Leopold, Solway, and Wittenberg. Now, if I get through my entire research paper and I realize I never used the Leopold source, I have two options. I can delete Leopold from my works cited, or I can look back at that source and see if there's information in there that I need that I may have forgotten to include. Okay, so by the same token, you're going to go through your parentheticals and make sure that all of those parentheticals have a corresponding source on your works cited. So if I had a parenthetical that said Harper, I would look and realize, uh-oh, Harper's not in my works cited. I forgot to put that one in, and that is something that I need to fix. Okay, so that kind of covers sources. Now let's talk about the format. Is my paper formatted in MLA? We did a lesson on this in class, but just as a reminder, it should look like what you see in front of you right now. So I have in the header inserted my last name with an insert page number. Don't just type a number one, because then every single page will have a number one on it. So do last name, insert page number. Make sure this is in Times New Roman 12. Make sure everything is in Times New Roman 12. You should have your name, your teacher's name, your class name, the date in this format, okay? So it'll say 24 March 2020 on yours. You'll have a title that's centered, not underlined, not bold, not italicized, just a centered title written in Times New Roman 12, and then you begin your paper. So make sure that everything looks just like that. Okay. Did I meet the page requirement? Ask yourself that. Some of you were a little short on your rough drafts, so that's hopefully something you've been working on. Just as a reminder, if you're in English 8, we're looking for 3 to 5 pages. In English 9, 4 to 6. In English 10, 5 to 7. In English 11, 6 to 8. And in English 12, 10 to 12. So look at your pages and just make sure you've got enough material. Did I meet the source requirement? I know I gave you all a minimum source requirement as well. I'll go ahead and tell you what those are in case you've forgotten. For English 8, that's 4 sources. For English 9, it's 5. For English 10, it's 6. For English 11, it's 7, and for English 12, it's 10. So make sure that when I look at your works cited, I see the correct number of sources. And that is a minimum. You can certainly have more, and your paper can certainly be longer than was required. These are minimum requirements. Okay, did I choose a good title? Think about your title. Don't make it boring. Okay, so my title should not be Cirque du Soleil. That's just my topic. So I'm going to try to come up with something interesting and something that relates to my thesis. All right, moving on to proofreading and grammar. Did I read my writing out loud? Please read your writing out loud. You've got plenty of time to do that now, I would think. So sit in a quiet place and read it out loud to yourself. See how it sounds. Writers read their writing out loud constantly. And you've probably noticed when you've watched me do my writing in class that I go back and read 3 or 4 times every time I write a paragraph because every change I make, I want to go back and read that and make sure it sounds good. So this is the best proofreading technique. Please get in the habit of doing this anytime you write. Okay, did I run the spell check? Please run the spell check. It's easy and it will save you from a lot of problems where you've just made careless errors. Did I proofread for capitalization? I would say that when I was marking grammatical errors and punctuation errors, capitalization was the number one thing that I was seeing. Either proper nouns not being capitalized or things being capitalized that just don't need to be. So please double check for that. Give your paper a read through where you're just looking at that. And here's a rule for you. Did I spell all numbers under 10? I marked these in a lot of drafts, but in case I didn't mark all of yours, make sure that any number you've included under the number 10 is spelled. So for example, the number 5, you would, instead of writing number 5, you would spell F-I-V-E. Okay, so that's just a general rule and something you should be doing as you're proofreading. Okay, so now structure. Do I have an introduction and a conclusion? Make sure you do. I know you didn't have to have one for the rough draft, but I do expect to see one in the final draft. I have video tutorials on those, so feel free to watch those as you write your own. Does each body paragraph begin with a topic sentence? This is very important. And what that means is paragraphs never begin with a quote. Okay, so I should never be reading along and start a paragraph with a quote from your research. It should always begin with your very own topic sentence that makes that little mini argument. Remember, each mini argument adds up to the big argument. So look at those topic sentences, make sure they're doing their job. Does each body paragraph end with my own words? So that means paragraphs can never end with a quote either. Make sure you're wrapping up paragraphs on your own with your own words. Okay, now finally, the probably number one comment I made to people when I was listing on your rough draft the 3 things I wanted you to work on, for most people, I said, draw more of your own conclusions. In other words, this has a lot of research in it, but I don't see a lot of original thought from you. And so I just wanted to give you some hints about how to do that. There are lots of ways, and I'm sure you all can come up with some great ones on your own. But here's some ideas. Let's say you're quoting from research or you're paraphrasing from research and you're ready to draw your own conclusion because naturally, as a smart thinking person, when you were processing that research, you're having thoughts and you're drawing your own conclusions from that research. You can say, this shows that, it appears that, thus, therefore, one can conclude that, it is evident that, or as evident, which means the same thing as it is evident that. So these are just some ideas. There are lots more, but make sure that there's plenty of your original thought in your research paper. It's generally not a good idea to say I think or I believe, and it's not a great idea to use the word I. At least if you're going to use it very sparingly. But there are ways to draw your own conclusions without saying I think or I believe. And here are just some for you. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Watch this, go through it, and hit pause whenever you need to as you pull up your own rough draft and your proofreading, and let me know what you need. Thanks, everybody.